Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Identity Architects, the podcast that's dedicated to spotlighting individuals who are changing the way that data is used to deliver better customer experiences. I'm your host, Ben Cicchetti, and for this episode, our SVP of Sales for Northern Europe and Italy, Stu Colman, had the opportunity to sit down and chat with Lara Izlan, Director of Data Strategy at ITV. This is an amazing listen. Every opportunity I've had to hear Lara speak, it's always insightful, powerful, and inspiring. So I'm thrilled that we had the opportunity to bring Lara onto the podcast. Stu and Lara have a great conversation covering everything from how Lara got started in data, ITV's first-party data strategy, and where the world of broadcast TV is heading. Before I hand it over to Stu, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button so you know when the next episode of Identity Architects lands. But without any further delay, here's Stu and Lara.
Great. I'm really pleased to welcome Lara to the latest edition of Identity Architects. I'm personally super pleased to be speaking to Lara today. She and I have worked kind of with each other, alongside each other, bumped into each other for quite a number of years now, and it's always been a really pleasurable experience. She's one of the brightest and most engaging people I think I know in the industry. So I'm really looking forward to kind of learning a bit more about her today and kind of get her story and her journey through kind of data and the industry we work in. So, Lara, just to start off with, do you want to just give us a couple of minutes or a minute or so kind of intro to yourself, who you are, what you do, where you come from, etc. And then we're going to jump into some quick fire questions and then a little bit more in depth around the subject that we're talking about today.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Stu. That was a really, really warm welcome. I was scratching my head last night, wondering how long, in fact, we've known each other, and I think it must be somewhere between 12 and 15 years.
We were mere babies at the time.
Yes, exactly. In the early days of all of this kind of data and programmatic journey that we've been on. I'm so delighted to be here. So happy to be here. I had a look at your previous podcast speakers and conversations while I was preparing for this, actually, and honestly, it's such a fantastic lineup, and I'm really honored to be invited and to be included. So thank you.
No, it's our pleasure. And our honor.
So I'll introduce myself briefly. So Lara Izlan. I'm currently Director of Data Strategy at ITV. I've worked in digital media for many years. If you're paying attention, it'll be more than 15 because I did start before I met Stu. And for the most part, I've worked across many different companies and aspects of digital media over the years. But one of the sort of uniting factors across all of those different roles that I've taken on has been data. So I actually started my career in investment banking in San Francisco, looking at digital media companies, but then I jumped straight into Silicon Valley because the lure of kind of working for those up and coming companies was just too great. But I've worked across, consumer research, strategic planning, and then more recently, sort of advertising technology and kind of more pure group data roles. I've worked across a number of businesses, as I said, AOL, Disney, Telegraph, Auto Trader, so kind of some of the big iconic brands globally and in the UK. And then for ITV specifically, I joined ITV just over 3 years ago. And I was originally brought in to build and lead its very first advertising data team. And in the couple of years or so that I worked in that role, my team and I were responsible for data partnerships, products, and analytics for advanced advertising. Really exciting times. We'll talk about Planet V in a minute. And there was a lot of really fantastic work that happened then. I then moved on into a group-wide role for data strategy, and now I'm responsible for rolling out some of those, value-adding, data-driven ideas across the whole business. So, in addition to commercial advertising, we're working with our partners, business stakeholders in marketing, in product, on the content side, distribution side, etc. So it's really, really exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. And watching from the outside, we get that sense of excitement and progression with the companies. I'm really looking forward to kind of getting into a bit more depth with you on what's going on and some of the exciting things that are kind of coming out of the ITV stable. You also forgot to mention you have a master's in behavioural science and an MBA as well. So when I say you are one of the brightest people I know, you put me to shame. So
Oh, I don't know about that. So I will say something about the masters, because I was coming out of Silicon Valley, and it was, around the time of one of the kind of bubbles bursting. I've actually lived through maybe two or three of those already.
brilliant.
And I wanted to do something different. And some people were thinking, oh, I'll go and backpack across Asia, or take a gap year and go surfing in Australia, or something like that, right? Have a bit of a
Yep.
break from the industry. And what did I come up with? Ooh,
A master's.
I want to go and do a master's in behavioral science. That sounds like fun. So yes, I think that you'll probably hear throughout this podcast that I'm a little bit of a nerd, but it was a great adventure. I mean, the one thing I would say about that, and we'll talk about kind of consumers in a minute, is it was really interesting to understand the kind of the mindset of society or individual consumers, because that's effectively who we're serving and who we are. So even just taking a year out to kind of have time to reflect on some of those kind of key concepts, and bringing that back into my career was actually really, 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 really beneficial in the long run, I think.
Yeah, it makes sense. And
But
it's
anyway,
those kind of
thanks for the underhanded compliments there.
no, definitely a compliment. But it's those kind of experiences that shape us, isn't it? And help us kind of build some perspective on what we then do with our careers. Is those kind of experiences earlier on. So
Indeed.
yeah, I think it's a really interesting kind of element to kind of your history and what you've done. And as I look forward to hearing more about it. Going to jump into some quick fire questions, if that's okay. Just
Okay.
fairly quick answers from you, and then we can get into kind of the kind of deeper stuff as we go through. But talking of kind of experiences, we all come to kind of marketing and advertising through different channels and different ways and different experiences. But what was your kind of earliest memory of kind of advertising, marketing, and kind of what influence did it have on you, I guess?
So I've heard you ask this question of previous podcasts, and I had a little think about it. And actually, I this is a tough one for me to answer. I think actually advertising must have worked in a very subliminal way for me as a young person, because I don't have like really vivid memories of any kind of particular thing. But this is the best that I can do. So when I was a young person, I was an avid dancer, and I danced competitively for many, many years, starting in my teens. And I used to read any dance magazine that I could get my hands on, and there were few and far between, to be honest, because I lived in Malaysia, and we would get it sort of 2 months after the
Yep.
UK. But I do remember quite vividly really kind of wanting and like saving up all my kind of pocket money for all the amazing things that were advertised in those magazines, right? So I guess that
Yep.
was kind of probably my first experience with sort of targeted contextual advertising, and the influence that it has on kind of people. So that's
Yeah.
the best I can do. I can't name
Brilliant.
any brands, unfortunately.
No, it's great. And I didn't know you were a dancer, so maybe next time we see each other, we should have a bit of a dance off. But you're right. That's that kind of contextual placement can really kind of
It's still a very
um,
powerful thing today, I think.
absolutely. I mean, again, we'll get into this a bit more, but the kind of the return of contextual with the evolution of the cookie, I think is a really positive thing. And to your point there, if it's the right content in the right way, it does have an influence. It does have an impact. So we should celebrate
Absolutely.
that. You gave us a little bit of a history of your career and talked about some of kind of the first jobs that you did. Knowing what you know now and the experiences that you've had, what would you, if you went back to kind of yourself 20 odd years ago, when you were first starting, what would you kind of say to yourself? What kind of advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, loads of things.
Apart
But
from invest in Apple.
take the job at Google when it was offered to you early in your career.
Yeah.
A few things. I think one, probably when I was early on in my career, I was kind of more introspective and reflective. I've always been kind of a huge learner, and that's something, being curious and always wanting to learn, and that's something that has kind of followed me, throughout my career, up to today. But I think what I would say to myself as a young person is, don't be afraid to ask questions, ask more questions, keep asking questions. um, I think as a young person, I would absorb a lot and then be a lot in my mind, and work it out for myself. Whereas I think, you can learn faster when you're kind of more open with the questions that you have, and it can benefit other people as well.
Yeah.
And I think along with that is, I would tell my younger self to trust yourself a lot more. Trust your instinct, trust in the knowledge that you have and what you bring to the table. I think I learned this over time, and it's something that I'm continuously working on. But as if I could talk to my younger self, I would tell her to uh, to trust her instinct a lot more.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the final one, I will throw in one more, because I think this is something we all don't do enough of, and it took me a long time to figure this out, embarrassingly, which is, don't be afraid to take breaks. So, maybe it's because I was born of a generation where, the aim was never to have gaps in your CV and just be continuously on the move, and, looking for, new opportunities, new things to do, new ways to improve yourself. And it's only quite recently that I've come to the realization that sometimes stopping for a little while and finding new ways to re-energize can actually propel you forward much, much faster. So I think one of the things I would tell my younger self is, don't be afraid to take those breaks, re-energize, and, it will allow you to power forward.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for anybody listening. And, to be able to go back and say it to yourself. We get on the treadmill, and we think, particularly in kind of fast moving industries like media, that we have to constantly be going and going and going and going and going. And actually, it's great just to stop, take a breath, take a step back, be retrospective for a while, and you can achieve so much by just having a little bit of that kind of reflection on what's happened and where
Yeah.
you should be going next. So I think that's
And
really great
perspective, I
advice.
think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We get caught up in the journey a bit, don't we, and forget that we can stop and take a breath.
Absolutely.
Good.
I think so.
A couple more quick fire questions.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. I haven't been quick on your quick fire.
It's fine. I'm quick at asking. That's all that matters. So we are a little bit, as an industry at the moment, obsessed with this kind of concept of identity. It seems to be running through pretty much everything. And it can be, even for people like ourselves who've been doing this for some time, a hard concept to kind of understand in its entirety. So in order to kind of break that down a bit and really simplify what we mean, if you were to have to explain to a 10-year-old, what do we mean by identity, the concept of identity within advertising, how would you describe it?
To a 10-year-old. So I've got an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old. So I guess on average, I could cover them both. Although I doubt really they fully understand what mommy does. I mean,
Yeah.
I have taught them to watch the ads.
Have they asked you, are you on telly yet?
No, they understand that I've got something to do with advertising on TV, and they don't skip ads anymore because they know mommy has got something to do with the ads on TV, and therefore they will sit through them, which is great. Oh yeah, it's an interesting one. This is what I was sort of thinking about. So if you think of a person as a pencil outline, and identity is basically coloring in layer by layer everything that you know about them until you get to the creation of a unique picture that is representative of the person, I think. And the more characteristics or the more colors that you add to the picture, the more you know about them, about what makes them happy or sad or excited. And as you know, as a 10-year-old, as a friend, the more you know about this person, the the better potentially that friendship could be. Something
Yep.
like that.
Brilliant. No, love it. I think it's a great way of doing it. Two more quick ones.
Yep.
What keeps you awake at night?
Box set binging.
Okay. What's the latest?
I was going to give you a TV answer, right? So, well, I'll give you an ITV Hub answer as well, just to be on brand. So, I think the
Absolutely.
most recent drama series, was that I've binged on was The Thief, His Wife, and the Canoe. I don't know if you watched that. It was
I
just
think my
brilliant.
wife's watched that one. Yep.
Yeah, no, it was brilliant. Very, very different. But in true kind of ITV fashion, just the way the drama unfolded, just basically kept you watching it right to the end. And then obviously the other things that I'm watching on the other streamers as well. But yeah, that does keep me awake at night. But
Okay.
professionally, I think that I do probably, like many people, find it quite hard to switch off my brain. It doesn't switch off when I tell it to. Um, I think it would be, there's the near term and the long term aspect. So the near term is, we are in the process as a data team at ITV, in the process of rolling out a really ambitious data strategy. And the things that I worry about is, or keep me awake at night, would be how how successful we are on that journey, and how do our teams and our stakeholders, how are they responding, and are we rolling things out in the right way so that we can get the maximum impact for ITV. And then the longer term, it's things like contributing. Am I, in my small way, with my small footprint, contributing more broadly to the kind of longer term sustainability of this industry? What is it going to look like in years to come? What is this working landscape going to look like in years to come, and is it going to be ready and better for our kids, etc. I mean, it doesn't come up every single night, but every once in a while it pops into my dreams. Are we doing the right things today that is contributing to greater good in the future?
I think that's a really interesting point. And I think it's probably something that many people probably share as a thought process. And advertising and marketing can always seem a little bit kind of capitalistic, and does it really do very much? But I do think it can have a positive influence in many ways. So yeah, it's definitely something that maybe on another session we can have a really in-depth chat about and kind of get into the details of maybe. One last quick fire. What gets you kind of motivated and ready to go in the morning?
Professionally, it's the team that I work with. I call them my rock star team. And this is the same for any company that I've been in, but I've got a particularly rock star team at the moment. I'm really, really blessed, actually, and proud to be working with this group of individuals. They're talented. They've come from, not just from media, from uh, a range of backgrounds, a range of industries, lots of different experiences. They're really, really diverse. I'm so proud, that we've been able to assemble such a team. And what that means for me, selfishly, is I get the chance to learn something new from them every day. I love, kind of hearing their points of view. Um, they, because of that diversity, they come up with loads of different ways of thinking about problems, lots of lateral thinking. And I just find that inspiring. It provides the adrenaline that kind of keeps you ticking along through the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having smart people around you is always such a great experience. I remember somebody said to me a long time ago, if you find yourself the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. And surrounding yourself with people that you can learn
That's
from
exactly right.
learn from and build your knowledge and experience is just it's such a great feeling. So I definitely echo what you said there. That's a great motivation. Right, so let's jump into a bit more kind of specific detail around kind of data and the role of data in our ecosystem. So as you've kind of rightly pointed out, you've kind of weaved data and the use of data throughout your career. So you've had a lot of experience and knowledge in the various roles that you've had, and no more so than at ITV, a very data and audience-rich company and a really great platform for using that data. To kind of engage with and communicate with and understand the consumers that you have a relationship with. So you've got a really privileged position, I think, to kind of give people thoughts and ideas around what they should be thinking about, what they should be investing in or understanding over the next kind of 12 to 18 months. So if you have perhaps, I don't know, three things that if you're sat in front of a brand or a media owner right now, things that you recommend they should be kind of thinking about and investing in over the next kind of 12, 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, there are loads of learnings from across the years that could, that would come in here. I think there's, constantly thinking about the longer term vision for what you want to achieve as a business. So always being business outcomes first, and people always say that, but really challenging yourself to think about where you want to be as a business in the longer term and putting in place things today to help you achieve that. In addition to obviously the short-term goals and the this month's budget, this quarter's budget, this year's budget. But so I think that's really important, because I think having a kind of a longer range vision is really important across sort of any business function, be that data or advertising or anything else. But when I was thinking about this, actually, the three things that I would really stress if I was in a if I was in a room with brands or advertisers or even my kind of fellow publishers is basically: one, test; two, learn; three, test again. And I think it's all about developing an almost aggressive experimentation mindset to everything that you do. And that is not, it sounds like it might be a little bit contradictory to what I just said before about having a long-term vision, but in fact, I don't think it is. I think it's important to set that long-term vision and objectives as a bit of trajectory, but then how you get there is all about that experimentation mindset that you take, that you take on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis with that trajectory in mind. I think in an industry like ours that's changing so rapidly, in just the last, kind of few years, I think the primary skills of value for marketeers, advertisers, publishers, everyone in this industry is curiosity and humility. Like, just being open, being curious to new ways of doing things, and be willing to try and fail. And then the humility of sort of realizing that the way that you've always done things and the way that you think things should be done may not be right anymore, and most likely isn't right anymore. And that's where things like getting inspiration from kind of younger, earlier stage uh, members of your team, coming from different industries, coming from diverse backgrounds, approaching all of those different ideas with some humility means that you're always going to be open to this experimentation mindset, I think. So yeah, if I, the three things are really one thing: test, learn, and test again, and just keep an open kind of experimentation mindset. That's the way we're going to move forward, I think, in this industry.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I think a lot of people listening will probably listen to that and think that sounds great, but um, I'm worried about that kind of test and learn process. I don't feel confident doing it. I completely agree with you. I think we're in a wonderful time where there's huge opportunities ahead of us, but I think people might get quite nervous. So just to kind of follow up on that, how would you advise people kind of approaching it? Is it just a case of jump in and just try stuff, or is it a case of try and follow a kind of a pattern or an agreed or established kind of process? Or
Good question. I think there's a few different ways. When it comes to data, some companies would be in a stronger position than others, depending on the types of data sets and the volume of data sets that they have. So it's easy to say, take a test and learn approach, but if you don't have the infrastructure, your data is not in the right place. You don't have, it's difficult to establish partnerships that will enable you to test and learn. Then I can see how it could be really daunting.
daunting, yeah, daunting,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, and I fully understand that, but I think maybe the fear or the reticence or the kind of disbelief maybe in the ability to take on, test, and learn as a mindset maybe comes from people sort of thinking that you have to go all or nothing with it. That this has to be a culture that influences everything you do as an organization. But really what it can be is kind of finding the pockets in what you do where you can start to do things a little bit differently. And if that is just one project out of the 20 that you do in a year, one campaign out of the 50 that you run every month, um, looking for partners like ITV that have innovation, uh, you know, uh, programs that you can be part of, where we try to make it as easy as possible for our customers to test and learn with us and take advantage of our large data sets. Um, I think it's you have to find a way to kind of dip your toe in the water, and you can build from there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and that may be initially, at least, uh, if your culture is not necessarily one that can change overnight, as most of ours aren't. It's proactively reaching out to partners that can help you with that process on a small basis to start.
yeah. It's I guess the underlying message there is it's got to start somewhere. So pick something, even if it's small, and give it a go, and be
Yeah,
confident and be brave with it.
yeah. Don't ever let quest for perfection stop you from starting something, right? I mean,
Yeah,
this is a
absolutely.
theme. This is a theme in our industry. How many conferences have we been to where people say, "Oh, measurement, we'll never figure out measurement," or whatever it is, insert theme. And my pushback to that always is, well, you're not going to solve it if you're putting this on, like, turning into a massive problem and putting it on a pedestal that nobody can even touch. What you actually need to do is, which I think many in our industry are doing, is kind of chipping away at it, and then coming together and sharing our learnings and kind of figure out what works and what doesn't work, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
If we get scared about some of these big challenges, then or we convince ourselves that it's too difficult to solve, then
Yeah, yeah,
self-fulfilling, really.
yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. We talked earlier about how to explain to a 10-year-old about identity. Um, so to touch on identity again, identity ultimately means people, and it means
Yes.
consumers, it means customers, it means people that we want to engage with. So two questions that I want to kind of get your thoughts and views on when it comes to kind of customers and consumers. The first one is, um, we're in this kind of evolving landscape where we know more, we can capture more, we can use more. There's a great opportunity for collecting information about consumers, um, but rightly so. There's now also this kind of growth of consumer awareness and privacy challenges and concerns and controls that exist. So, how do you think? Question number one: how do you think that's impacting the industry? What kind of challenges do you think that things like regulation and consumer awareness are going to have on what we do and how we go about doing it? And then the second part of that is, um, why is it important? Why does it matter that we care about this stuff? Why does it matter that the business decisions we make are influenced by how we talk to and engage with our customers? It might seem like an obvious question, but I'm keen to kind of get your thoughts and maybe an ITV view on what you do around kind of consumer engagement when it comes to things like privacy.
So, kind of first and foremost, consumer privacy or our viewer privacy and the security of their data is absolute paramount, right? So as a data owner, we have a direct relationship with our customers, consumers, the viewers. We have a responsibility for the 35 million records that we hold on about our viewers. Our viewers trusted us, right? They trust us to provide them with the best possible user experience, the best possible content in exchange for registering with our products and services and providing us with some of their information. And you have to hold that value exchange like sacrosanct, right? It is a contract and it needs to be treated with respect. So as a data team, for example, I mentioned that we're in the process of rolling out an ambitious new data strategy. And part of that is, completely re-architecting our kind of data platforms, from foundations all the way up to actual activation and delivery into the business. And what I mean by that is we are completely mindful about every model, every pipe, every data source, every partner that we use um, as we go about building that architecture. So we are security by design, we are privacy by design, and we are value and outcomes focused by design. So we would never hold data that we don't plan to use in a respectful way to create value for the business. There's just no point in that, and it's it's against regulation, etc. So I think that is that's just completely paramount. At the end of the day, people talk about data being gold, oil, whatever it is.
Pick something. Yep.
And in one way, that's right, but not if it's in the format that is, one, completely untouchable, and two, definitely used in the wrong way, and three, not used in the context of in a collaborative context with other data sets or kind of other players in the ecosystem, right? So data has a huge potential to drive value across the business, but I think that value needs to be realized through better interactions and engagement with viewers. So coming back to your questions, why are consumers important? It does seem obvious, but we tend to forget that consumers are part of this part of this ecosystem of data, right? They need to be seen. Consumers need to be seen as one of the key beneficiaries of this data economy that we're building, that we're working in, not just as a source.
Yep.
When you think about them just as a source, and it's just the privacy regulation, etc. When you think about them as one of the beneficiaries, key beneficiaries of the data economy, then all of a sudden it's, well, how do we, as we're thinking about value that this data can derive for our business, how do we deliver that in such a way that the consumer benefits from it equally or as well, right?
Yep.
Or as part of the journey towards the commercial value.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, consumers need to sit at the heart of everything that we do, because they're the knowledge, they're the insight, they're the value. We've got to treat them with that huge amount of respect
I mean,
and
for
understanding.
many businesses, no consumers means no
Yeah,
business, right? At the end of the
yeah,
day.
absolutely. And we talk at InfoSum about the opportunity of data and the challenge of data is that we're kind of in a world now where we've got this seesaw, and on one side of the seesaw we've got privacy, on the other side we've got performance. And in a world of particularly third-party cookies, which we're not going to touch on much today, but particularly third-party cookies, there was an imbalance there, because third-party cookies were just easy to use. They were a Swiss Army knife for the internet. We didn't have to think too much about what they meant and how we use them, etc. It just answered all the questions. As we move to a world, ITV is a great example where you're rich in kind of first-party consumer data at a kind of a personal level. Getting that balance right between ensuring that privacy by design, consumers at the heart of what you do, but still driving business performance. I suspect and imagine that there are times when some difficult decisions are made about that balance. And sometimes you're making decisions that aren't necessarily in the best interest of the commercial outcome. They're in the interest of the consumer relationship. And that's probably
I know
quite
that's exactly right. And I think, going back to what I said earlier about having a longer term vision for the business outcomes that you're driving means that you're thinking about these benefits over the long term. So if you're only looking at kind of commercial value in the next, I don't know, a few years, then you might think only of the profits or the monetization that you can achieve today, this year, next year. But if you think about it as as an investment into current and future success, then all of a sudden you're not going to forget those other elements of the ecosystem that you need to nurture, right?
Yep.
We work in an environment that's codependent, right? Uh, and if you piss off your consumers at some point,
Yep.
you're going to stop having them, and then all of a sudden, where's your longevity? Where's your sustainability as a business? So I agree, but also just to drop in the sort of partnership we have with InfoSum, I think the fact that we are approaching our data architecture with that security, privacy, value by design, I think it's really important to us, in the selection of the partners and suppliers that we work with. The there's an element of systematizing trust, which I think data clean rooms generally, and InfoSum in particular for us, really enables, right? Because trust is something that is obviously crucial for all of these different players to interact together, but it's very hard to do without a system in place that enables us to do it. So it's really important for us to work with suppliers that kind of have this sort of mindset, and they understand where we're coming from and where we need to get to, and are providing us the capabilities that allow us to fulfill that. And obviously our partnership with InfoSum has been amazing in enabling some of the really ambitious things that we want to do, but in a way that respects the principles that we have around respecting our user data.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Clearly, I'm biased, and I think InfoSum is a great solution in that space. But broadly, I think you're absolutely right. Consumers are much more aware of their data. They're much more in tune with the value of their data. They're much more conscious of protecting data and their identity. And it's just a shift, whether it's generational or awareness or whatever it is. It becomes almost the first thing you have to get right, and everything else builds off that. And it's such a juxtaposition to 10 years ago when we were first doing this with third-party cookies, where it just wasn't a thing. We didn't really care about it, So I think it's a really positive change for the industry, albeit bringing with it a lot of change, a lot of scratching of heads. And to your point about measurement, measurement without third-party cookies is very different, and we can't just wash, rinse, repeat on what we used to do. We have to think of new ways of doing it. So
we absolutely have to. I mean, we were riding a wave that was going to end at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there was no long-term vision in that, unfortunately. But it really is an opportunity for us to rethink, and we shouldn't be almost bringing with us the baggage of expectations of what we used to be able to do with cookies, because half of that we should never have been able to do, if
Exactly.
we were to really challenge ourselves, right? We
Yeah,
did it
exactly.
because,
We could.
it was there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe we weren't reflecting really on what we were doing. So it's almost like, let's clean slate this, and what is it that we're really, go back to what is it we're really trying to achieve as an industry, as a particular business, as brands, as publishers, etc. And then work with the tools and capabilities that we do have in order to achieve that. And it's probably a good time to take a bit of a reset anyway. Do we really
Yeah,
need to kind of be following people around with cookies and knowing everything about them?
yeah, no,
Probably,
absolutely. Probably not.
we'd use 50%,
Yeah,
20% of that data in a useful way to really drive business value and outcomes.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah, no, absolutely. So with that kind of clean slate or reset or how we want to kind of position it, I'm genuinely excited because I'm like you, I'm a bit of a closet nerd and actually quite like what we do as an industry from a kind of a process and the kind of mechanics of it. Um, One thing that really excites me about the use of first party data, again, ITV is such a great position with the strong kind of authenticated audience you have, 35 million across the UK. Um, it opens up a wealth of opportunities around partnerships and collaborations that perhaps didn't exist before. So, if you were kind of looking at that and going in an ideal world, this is what I'd like to do. What are some of those kind of collaborations? What are some of those kind of partnerships and opportunities for working together that you'd like to see? Whether that's industry based, whether that's outcomes based, or what would you like to see in the future?
Sure. I think first thing I'll say is we've been really fortunate in the the types of partners that really engaged with us since we launched our data matching capabilities, right? um, we've been running our data match program, running on proposition rather, running on InfoSum for almost a year and a half.
Yep.
And we were definitely doing sort of MVPs with a number of partners even before that. So we're probably all in all about two years or so into this. And we've had, a really nice mix across of brand partners across multiple industries, financial services, retail, consumer goods. It goes on and on. We've worked with smaller direct to consumer brands. We've worked with kind of larger bricks and mortar brands. And it's just given us a real breadth of learning, across all of that. And in the spirit of test and learn, making our proposition better and better for the future. Um, Kind of ideal collaboration partners for us, I mean, they've all been great, but the ones that kind of where it's really, really worked well are working with brands and suppliers actually, that are progressive and forward thinking, again, in that experimentation mindset, right? And are comfortable
Yep.
thinking about what they're trying to achieve for their brands and for their business outcomes in longer term. So in practical terms, what I mean is working with a brand that is not just going, okay, yeah, I'm going to do data match for one campaign around a particular event, and stop there. The ideal partners are the ones that go, I've got an innovation roadmap in mind. This is where I'm trying to go with my business. Let's let's test and learn on an iterative process, iterative basis over the course of a year. And we run campaign after campaign, continue to rebook, learning from the previous campaign, putting the learnings into the next one, and just kind of, making it better through that process of iteration. So I think there's a lot more we can do with our uh, brand partners on that basis, and we really
Yep.
welcome the opportunity to do that. In terms of where else, I think where else I can see data collaboration really having an impact on the industry, I think it's around kind of using our combined data sets to create more and better media intelligence. Um, Going back to that sort of chipping away at the measurement conundrum, I'm not I'm not talking about like all of us pull our data together and we create this concept of a unified, measurement, one measurement to solve everything. That's complex, but also too simplistic a way to think about what we're doing in this industry. I think it's like, how can we use our data sets together so that we can kind of create uh, a more holistic picture of our audiences, how they're engaging with us, the different consumer touch points, lifetime, life cycle, consumer journeys, um, and all of that can be used from in a media perspective. All of that can be used to plan campaigns, to run campaigns, to execute campaigns, to learn and iterate on campaigns, optimize much better. So how do we bring panel research data into the mix alongside first party data, second party data, third party data, um, offline? How do we bring all of those things together in a collaborative way, in a way that through systematized trust, so that we can paint a much richer picture of event our consumers, and serve them best, not only from a media or an advertising perspective, but also from a user experience and content experience perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely. To put that kind of into a bit of a context of what I should be doing with my data. I hear a lot of our partners at the moment talking about how can customer data play a role right across what I'm doing. Not just people think about customer data in advertising, they think about targeting ads, and actually it's significantly more than that. It's insights, it's learnings, it's intelligent planning, it's intelligent buying. Now, how do I suppress audiences to make other buys more effective? It's measurement and analysis, and working kind of multi-party ways of understanding the impact of what I'm doing and the outcomes I want to achieve. So one thing I get stupidly excited about, because I am a nerd, is how can customer data influence right across that journey and make the whole process better, not just kind of the specifics of, hey, let's just go and show some customers some ads. It's the whole process of enrichment, creating value, creating experiences that really do improve the relationships that we have with consumers and the value and the outputs that we can generate.
Like you, I'm a nerd, and what really
Let's
excites
not tell
me.
anybody.
We just told how many people are listening to this, like my mom and a few other people probably. Um, no, I'm 100% with you on kind of what makes me excited about what we can do with all of this, right? It's um, for example, at ITV, how can we use the data and the collaborative aspects of data sharing, data enablement that spans every business area that contributes to the consumer journey. So if you think about advertising, it's almost right at the end. Um, how can we use our data, alongside data potentially from kind of Barb, or data from other data sources, so that we can inform um, the content that we're developing or commissioning or acquiring, so that we ensure that we are investing in programming that will really, kind of excite and engage our viewers. Then you go into marketing, right? So we've got this amazing archive and new series and new programs coming to ITV. How do we use our data in conjunction with other data sets, to ensure that we are continuously attracting audiences that will engage with that content, right?
Yeah.
And then you move on to product experience. So you've got all this kind of great content. You've got an amazing kind of acquisition channel that's driven by data. How do you ensure that when that audience lands, they're having a fantastic experience, they're having a personalized experience, they are being able to easily find what it is that they're looking for, so they can enjoy this great content, and then off the back of it comes the advertising.
Yeah.
And so again, it's just like using our data, but at different points collaborating with other data sets that kind of joins up that entire journey with an amazing feedback loop, so that we can keep making that cycle better and better every time. That's
Yeah.
the stuff. That's the stuff that
That's
yeah.
what gets you excited.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
And
yeah.
just on that, we kind of touched a bit on creativity there, aren't we? Is there anything out there at the moment that ITV are doing or planning or considering that because it has made you kind of stop and go, wow, that's really special. That's
So
really innovative or amazing, or pick an adjective.
So one of the programs, ITV programs that, so not program as in content, but initiatives rather, that ITV uh, have had going for a couple of years now is Studios 55, and this is where we invite startup companies, really early, very very early stage companies with really interesting ideas around how we can engage more with hard to reach viewers, younger viewers, in new and innovative ways. Using some of our content, using some of our IP, or leveraging the power of our data. And there's just been, I've been involved this year with two companies in the sort of pipeline early stages as a advisor and mentor, and there's just some really really exciting ideas. So last year, for example, when this program ran, we ended up investing in three companies. One of them is kind of operates in the metaverse, and since then, we've done loads of really interesting work with them to start to introduce our brands, our talent, the content experiences that you get, kind of, on TV or streaming as normal, but in a, engaging with our customers, viewers in a brand new way.
Yep.
And there's just so much more of that we can do. And this program is really kind of opening up our eyes to the art of the possible.
Okay, great. I mean, it's a super exciting time, right across the spectrum. So really looking forward to what's coming from ITV, what's coming broadly from the industry, and your influence on it, which is going to be great. So we're almost up on time. So two last quick questions. I'm going to ask you to get your crystal ball out and give me just a quick line on, if we were to roll forward perhaps 12 months from now, what do you think, if we had this conversation in 12 months, what do you think the things we would be talking about are, or what kind of opportunities or partnerships might be unlocked in kind of that time, that 12-month time? And then the last question will be, once you've had a crack at predicting the future, is this podcast is all about people in the industry who have a role in data and have a story to tell, and kind of pioneers. So who would you like us to perhaps talk about next or interview next?
Oh, my crystal ball. Some days it's a bit foggy in my crystal ball. A year from now, I'd like to see some of the, I would hope that a lot of the kinks of the kind of these early stages of kind of putting the foundations in place for data collaboration, I'm hoping that will be mostly behind us, and we will really be in the mode of kind of using it and actively testing and figure out what works, right? I think that's, that's the real hope. That's what we're all kind of aiming for, and kind of proactively working on, like, how do we make this process much easier to engage with, on all fronts, kind of the legal front, the technical front, and the people and process side of things as well, which is absolutely huge. Once we can do that, then the things I would really like to see us make progress on is, how do we bring we talked a little bit about creative. How do we start to use this data collaborative space to understand and optimize for the impact of creative in all of this? We're still thinking about users and, technology, data points, etc. But this at its heart, it's a creative industry. So we really need to start to bring the creative aspect into this collaboration, and more than just dynamic creative optimization, etc.
Yep.
But kind of really, how are we,
Storytelling.
storytelling, how are we informing our decisions from a creative perspective, and making sure we speak to our users in a good way. So that would be huge for me. In terms of who you should be inviting next, so my first thought, because this is one I sort of was preparing for as well, was Karen Eccles at the Telegraph. But then I looked through your list, and you have already spoken to her, and I listened to
She was great.
Her podcast, and she was great. Which is not to say, don't invite. You must invite her back, right?
She can come back. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. But I think I'd love to hear from. There's so many luminaries in our industry. One person that jumps to mind is Mary Keane Dawson. So, and maybe thinking about identity with a bit more of a future lens. She talks very eloquently and knowledgeably around, kind of blockchain and NFTs and how that might start to not in a kind of faddy sort of way, but there's a lot around that and what that could mean for how we think about identity going forward into the future. That could
Absolutely.
be really interesting, I think.
Yeah, and she's such a lovely person to speak to as well. So I think that's a really good suggestion. So watch this space. Thank you, Lara. It remains just to say thank you very much for taking the time and sharing so much with us today. It's great to hear your story and your experiences. I think we can all learn from what you've experienced, your approach to things, the test and learn, the be brave. I think it's all really great insights and ways of working. You're clearly doing some great stuff at ITV, and I certainly look forward to seeing some of the output of that over the kind of 12, 18 months ahead. I think we've also learned that you're a very good dancer. So next time we're together...
I never said very good.
You said you did it a lot, so we shall see. So I'm going to have to challenge you.
It doesn't necessarily correlate. I'm going to challenge your statistics there.
Brilliant. Well, maybe next time we see each other, we'll have to have a little bit of a dance off and just prove that out. Maybe we'll record it and stick it up online.
Oh dear.
Good, but thank you very much. Really appreciate your time. Lovely to speak to you, and look forward to seeing great success in the future.
Thank you. And thanks as well to all of the teams at InfoSum that have been working so closely with us over the last couple of years. I think we've achieved a lot, and there's a lot more to come. No pressure, but there's a lot more to come.
Brilliant. Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Lara for joining us on Identity Architects. As predicted, an insightful and thought-provoking conversation, and I think Lara's description of identity to a 10-year-old might be one of my favourites we've ever had. All that leaves for me to do is remind you to hit that subscribe button so you know when the next episode of Identity Architects lands. But until then, thanks for listening.